tension wrench should be used for the final tightening of the sump plug. The reason we use a tension wrench is all people have different strengths, and you could easily strip a sump plug inside the sump if you tighten it too tight. If you look up your workshop manual, you will see the required torque setting for a sump plug on your particular bike. On a Hayabusa it's 16.5 foot-pound or 23 Newton meters. With your tension wrench set, you can see that the sump plug washer is being crushed, as we discussed earlier. Once it's tight, tighten the tension wrench until it reaches its setting. That's it. That sump plug is now in there correctly, at the correct tension, and it shouldn't leak. Okay, we're now ready to put some oil back in the bike. Now the sump plug is back in, the oil filter's back in. Now I always put the type of oil recommended by the manufacturer for this particular motorcycle. Also the required amount, which you'll find all that information in the workshop manual, or by contacting your local motorcycle dealer. This particular bike takes 3.3 litres with an oil change, with a filter change, my manual says. I always put a little bit less. I'm going to put 3 litres to start with, run the engine for a minute or so, switch it off, let it sit for a while, then recheck it and top up as necessary. Now that we've got the correct amount of oil inside the engine, we need to start the bike and run it for around 30 seconds, or around a minute, just to get the oil through the motor, and then let it sit for a while and then recheck the oil. So let's do that. There's 2 main things we need to do when we do this. One is when we start the motor, make sure after a few seconds the oil light goes out. That indicates that the bike has oil pressure and everything's good. And the second thing we need to do is make sure there's no leaks. That's why I'll leave the fairing off at this point. Checking for any leaks around the oil filter and around the sump plug. After the bike's been run and sat for a little while, we need to recheck the oil level. With an assistant, because it's on a bench, have the bike in a nice vertical position, and we check where the oil is at the window. Now ideally, it should be, in my opinion, halfway between the low and the full mark. I run it just below the full mark. I don't run too much, and definitely not below that low mark. This requires a little bit more. Okay, don't forget to put the cap back on. And tighten. Now the reason we check the bike with the rear stand off on a level position is, you can see now you can't accurately get the oil level correct because I'm on a rear stand only. You could keep adding oil until it was at the full mark and end up with a bike over full.